Hello, good morning. Welcome to our live webinar about how to make your app cloud native. My name is Marijn. I work at True. True is a nice company. We do managed hosting. Mostly a technical crowd. 70% of us are an engineer. We tender mostly to startups and scale-ups, and we've been in web hosting for about 20 years. We do public private clouds and Azure, and also hybrid environments. And we've been doing Azure and Kubernetes since 2017. And we've gone in the last 20 years from a traditional operations company to a DevOps company. And we're Mavericks at heart. Then, of course, you'll immediately think of Top Gun. We're not that kind of maverick. We're not flying any F-16s or jets, but we are the type of maverick that always questions your direction you want to go. And in that sense, we love to talk about cloud-native development and cloud-native applications in general. My name is Marijn. I'm a solutions architect at True. My background is in systems engineering, and I've been around in managed hosting since 2013. I'm a Kubernetes certified administrator, and True, as of today, is also a Kubernetes certified solution provider. I'm here with Martijn. I think you can introduce yourself.
Well, thank you, Marijn. It's very nice to have a colleague that has almost the same name, and it has a lot of challenges within the company. But I'm Martijn van Calker. I'm working at True since April this year, and within my role as solution architect, I'm mainly focusing on cloud and Kubernetes and to get people onboarding on that platform. So today I want to give you some insights in what we're doing, where we're talking about, and how you can take advantages of this topic, the cloud native environment and services. Let me get the clicker. The topics. Today I will be talking about our definition of cloud native. We have to set a definition to make sure everyone is talking about the same thing. We're going to tell you a little bit of how cloud native and the cloud is going to impact your application and the advantages it can bring to your organization and your application as well. And last but not least, we will tell a lot of Kubernetes, and we will mention it a lot. But we're going to tell you what a container is and how you can take advantages of it, and if you need to go to Kubernetes or not. And we're going to end up with a demonstration in which we will show you some workarounds, how you can work with containers, and how you can set up pipelining for them to get some really nice benefits from that.
So, before we continue, I forgot to mention, for those of you that are watching live, feel free to ask any questions and I'll ask them to Martijn as we go along, or maybe I will answer them myself. Or if you're watching a recorded version, feel free to shoot us an email or a message on LinkedIn.
Definitely. Thank you. Cloud native, and it's a very booming topic right now, and we need to define what it is and before we can use it and fill it in. So to do so, I want to start with the definition of the cloud. And the cloud for us means some computational units you usually can consume as a service. You can consume those by API, so they are scalable. There are more than two servers within your rack, within your data center. And if you're doing it right, sometimes you don't have to manage the hardware. Sometimes you don't have to manage the middleware, and we'll have a look at that as well. And that all you will able to, and that all is available in a pay-as-you-go model. So you only pay for the usage you're doing there. So I talked a little bit about the services and the cloud products, and you can consume those via an API, and you need to think about infrastructure as a code. You can also think about platform as a code, where we will come to in the next slide. But if you're going to consume your platform via infrastructure as a code, you need to make sure that you are aware of all the things. You have to manage your own virtual machines, you have to patch them, you have to update them, so you still need to manage a lot. However, you don't have to manage the infrastructure, so the physical hardware, the data center, etc. So it can have some benefits, but you still need to do a lot. If we continue, the next stage is platform as a service, which you can consume. And the platform as a service is an interesting one because it has a very wide variety of services you can consume. You can consume Kubernetes as a service, or you can consume storage as a service. And both come in different versions, but you have complete different separations of concern and what you need to manage and what they're managing for you. So make sure that when you start using platform as a service within your organization or within the cloud, that you understand what kind or where you are responsible for. The fun part here about Kubernetes is when you're using Kubernetes as a platform as a service, you're still responsible for that runtime and the middleware, because you need to store them, to build them within your container. Without that, and if you're doing that in a not correct, you don't get the benefits of that platform and it will work against you. The last platform I want to talk about is functions. Functions as a service, and this is a really nice booming service. Products are created around it, where we saw a few years ago that you're only available or capable of storing some single file script files to execute them, to do some input, and you get some output from it. They're evolving, and currently you see that they're also able to have a container runtime, so they support your own container, and that has created enormous services around it, which are very nice, but you still need to build your own container if you want to do it that way. So what is cloud native? And I think the CNCF sums it up very correctly. You have that cloud and you want to integrate with that cloud and you want to take advantages of it. So you need to understand all the components the cloud has to offer you before you can take advantage of it. So if you understand if you understand the components, you also need to understand your application and where your application is capable of doing. If your application really depends on storage, for instance, maybe functions is not the way to go, because functions, tend to don't have storage in general. You have to configure that in some kind of way. So it's not quite simple, and to go to the cloud, you really need to think of both of them. So when you're ready, the impact it has on your application, and where you should think of when you move to the cloud, you're probably going to start with some decoupling all the services within your application. Your application needs to be as stateless as possible, and if you want to have that functionality within your application, you want to extract that to a different service. So you see that all the components within your application, you're going to make services around to provide to that application. You want that components to be as immutable as possible. So if one dies or crashes, it can spin up a new one. Your orchestrator can spin up new ones. And that really is one of the benefits of the cloud, where if you're doing it right, your container might be killed because it crashed and a new one is already running for you. You haven't even noticed the downtime there. And to achieve that, you need to design your application and everything around that for automation and to make sure that it's able to run within that environment. So the question is then where to start. And probably when you're starting, there will be some kind of questions and you're going to start searching for the right tooling. And there is a lot of tooling currently available within the landscape of CNCF. And what CNCF has done, they have created a landscape of all the available toolings right now, which you can use to take advantages of that cloud, to integrate with the cloud, and you can use them for scaling, for orchestrating, etc. Well, we usually see that this landscape is a bit overwhelming. So before you start using this, or before you, when you look at this for the first time, you might think, where do I need to begin? And that's why the CNCF also created the trail map. The trail map is really nice when you want to say, make your first step within the cloud native landscape. And it starts with containerization. You should containerize your application, and I will come back to that in the next 2 slides. When you've done your containerization, you need to set up proper CI and CD for that application to make sure that whatever you do, whatever new commits you do to your application, whatever changes you do, it will be delivered in the environment what you're targeting. And it's fine when you're starting with CI/CD to only start with building and testing. You don't have to go to production yet. Make sure you get confidence within that process, though, that you know what the output is, and when you have it, that you're confident to go to such environments. When you're done with that, you're probably going to look at an orchestration platform. So how you're going to run that container or your code that you've built with it. And from there, if you're running it, you want to observe it. And from there, you're going to go to step 5. And you probably want to have a service proxy or a service mesh to manage more than just your application. From there on, you're going probably to networking and policies. Kubernetes itself is very open, and a lot of cloud providers are open by default, so you need to set some rules about who's going to talk to who and who's allowed to consume those services you've created and deployed. So you want to create some policies about it to make sure that it's correct and updated when you need it. And when you've done that, I think the next step should be security, but that's the only thing I'm missing on this trail map, because security, when you're going to the cloud or you're going to anywhere with your software, is something you need to think of. The rest of these steps, so 7, 8, 9, and 10, are a bit out of scope, I think, for this presentation, and I don't want to touch them. And I want to continue with the advantage of containers. We've already mentioned it a lot, but building your application, packing your application into a container really gives you the advantages of portability, where you can build one container and run it anywhere. So on my laptop, in the cloud, in Kubernetes, to Internet of Things devices on the edge, or even functions, as I mentioned. So you have a consistent operations of all those environments you will create and want to deploy to. By so, you can benefit of scalability. If your application, your container is tiny enough and it doesn't depend on too much and it is immutable, you can scale it quite easily across all the options you have. And by doing so, containers usually tend to have less overhead than virtual machines. It's quicker, you don't have to manage the virtual machines. All your dependencies are already in your container. So it's quite easy to take those advantages. And last but not least is isolation. And it's possible to achieve that, but as you see, there is a star behind it, and that's because you need to do it very good. You need to think of how you're going to isolate your container, because by default your container will be running probably as root, can do anything, can connect to everything. So you need to make sure that your container is isolated.
All right. So now that you've talked a bit about the advantages of using containers, are there any moments that you would advise against using containers, or maybe even advise against using Kubernetes?
Yeah, definitely. For applications that don't have to be the portability, or don't need the portability or the scalability, or have a very hard dependency on storage, for instance, databases currently, it not making sense. You see bit of flip within the world right now. And due to the operator pattern Kubernetes is providing you, it's more easier to schedule the containers on the node you want to have. But Kubernetes itself is not aware of the underlying infrastructure, so it will just schedule your container everywhere on that platform. So if you have a high dependency on networking or maybe storage, you might think twice to go to containers or to go to Kubernetes.
All right. And then another question is, at what point should you start working with Kubernetes? Do you need to have this wonderful microservice application before you start looking into this? Or can you just move any application to Kubernetes?
Definitely. You can move, I think, almost any application to Kubernetes. I think that's where the challenge currently is. We see a lot of people adopting it, but we also always ask the question to a customer, do you really need to run on Kubernetes? We see a lot of function providers, app services in the cloud where you can deploy a single container for your single application, for your probably a single WordPress installation. That's going to be a very good runtime for that application as well. So you don't have to go to Kubernetes all the time.
All right.
Well, it's time for some demo. Do you have some questions already?
That was it for now.
That was it for now.
If anybody has any questions, please do send them in.
We'd love to hear from you to get some interaction. Let's see if we can switch screens. I think that would be nice. And I'm wondering if the audience can see my screen. I have no clue if that's possible right now.
I believe that we're live with the demo.
Cool. So in this demo, I'm gonna demonstrate the advantages containers can bring you and the advantages your pipelining when you have created them can give you as well. And what we're gonna focus on is the application. So we're gonna make an application, we're gonna create an application, we're gonna build it, and we're gonna push it first to a registry, and from there on, we're gonna use it to create an environment for to run it on. So what we're gonna do, I've prepared a few things. And I think I'm going to do my last slide first, because when we're gonna deliver this application, what we're gonna do is we're gonna use the registry in where we've pushed the charge and the application.
Little technical difficulties, I see.
Ooh, it's switched.
There we go.
Aha, very nice. And we're going to use, normally you would use, if you're moving to Kubernetes, you would start with some GitOps methodology. And what that means is that you have your registry of your application, the definition of your application, living within a Git repository or within a Helm registry. From there on, your GitOps tooling, and in this case that's ArgoCD for us, it will pull continuously for changes within that registry or that repository. So on the other side, it will look in Kubernetes to see what the state of that application is, what you've defined in Git, and it will compare those constantly. So when that application is out of sync, so I've updated my application spec and I want to go to a new version, ArgoCD will notice that, will prepare a deployment, and if I want it, I can sync that automatically to my environment. The advantages of this and of all those tooling is that you can integrate them with your own workflow. And I really want to take advantage of using Argo. And today I'm not gonna work from a GitOps perspective. I do, however, have a Helm repository prepared for this demo, but I'm gonna use Argo to dynamic generate all the environments I need for this in this example. So let's see if it's work.
Let's see.
So here's where the magic gonna happen. We have, let's see if I can make my screen a little bit bigger and everyone can see it. So what I've prepared is a code repository in Gitlab, and some technical issues. Is it working or should I stop mirroring my screen? Okay,
right.
cool.
I'm seeing the desktop now.
Yeah, I should stop mirroring my screen. Apparently when you your computer goes into sleep, it will do the magic for you. Display settings.
It's not live if everything works in the first go, right?
Yeah. This should be it. Cool.
Cool.
Thank you. So what we're gonna look at today, or now in this session, is this repository. And I've prepared it in Gitlab because Gitlab is my way to go tooling, but feel free to use your own tooling. And you need to be confident with the tooling you're using to take advantage of, integrate it in within your workflow and eventually within your cloud as well. So this automation repository I've created, I've set up some templates, and that template's gonna help me with all the other projects I'm gonna create to build and to run in my cloud environment. So what I have here, I've created a build stage in which the only thing I'm doing is I'm building a container from a Docker file. I'm logging into my registry, so from there on I can push that container that I've built to the registry. Then the first step I've showed, so here, then it's mirroring again, right?
No, it's okay.
Interesting how this works. When I've pushed it, we've completed the containerization of our application, and then it's living inside the registry. From there on, I can probably trigger ArgoCD to update my application or to create the environment for that application and use it and test it if that's what we want. So let's go. I've set up a demo, and what I'm going to do here, I have the same as on GitLab, but I've created a very small. Is it still there?
Apparently we're not on screen.
Yeah. Now we're on screen, or we're not on screen. Yeah, we're not on screen.
What we're seeing.
This.
At least you have a very, very clean desktop.
Yeah, for demo purposes. I'm sharing my screen way too often. Yeah, you should see this. So what I have is the automation repository here, and I have a very small script. That script is going to create a new repository and populate it with a CI/CD file, which only includes the templates I've created here. I do create a very tiny Docker file to make sure we have a working container. It's only based on Nginx. So if I create a new repository, my pipelining should be in place directly. Let's see if that's still working. Create a project name, and I've already populated this one with "we are going to the cloud" because that's where we want to end up today. I've registered a domain name for it, so I want to use it, and the Helm chart I've created for this one as well, and the version of my Helm chart. So when I do that, it will trigger a few APIs to make sure GitLab has the repository, and I've set up all the stuff I need. And there it opens directly my code editor, and from there on, if I run this one in, that's the you should have a presentation mode of this one, but it's always under the...
It's never where you expect it.
Yeah, exactly that. So if there is someone in the chat that can enlighten me, that would be brilliant.
You can probably search under help.
Where did you saw that one?
Yeah, if you go all the way to the help on the right. No, just there in the top bar, or there, presentation mode. There we go.
There you can configure it. That's nice. That's nice. Run. I would say it would be on the window or under view, but otherwise I'm just gonna continue. Tools, appearance, enter presentation mode. There we are. So, as I said, the script I'm running, what it does, it creates the GitLab CI YAML, the pipelines I want to use, and it includes the projects it includes the scripts I've set up. So the build, I want to build that Docker image, and I want to run it as well. The Docker file is very easy. I've set up a waiting page that we're coming soon. So we're going to serve that one in our application. What's happening now? It's already pushed to GitLab. And when I'm here, you see there is a new repository. That repository has already been populated. And you see that here it's the same. It has the same Docker file and it has the same GitLab CI YAML specification. When we go to the CI/CD environment, you will see that there are 3 pipelines created, or at least one pipeline with 3 stages. And we have done that in the automation part. And I want to start with that first, because the automation part is what I've done here, is I've set up a default branching deployment strategy. And what I'm doing there is that all commits that are pushed to the main branch, so in this case it should be master, will be deployed to the staging environment. We're going to use ArgoCD first to check if such environment already exists, so if the application is configured, and when it's not, we will create the environment. And after that, we will update the image tag to make sure it has the latest version of what we've built. So it's very nice. You will make sure, or you're sure that each project you're creating will have a staging environment which has already been populated with a working CI/CD experience. Well, that's nice, but let's see if it's worked. And if I go to ArgoCD, you see a new app is appearing on the right, and that's that we are going to the cloud staging environment. And there you can see that the Helm chart I've specified, ArgoCD, kind of enlightens you what the resources are you're going to deploy, or it has deployed on Kubernetes. I've automated this step, so everything I'm giving ArgoCD will be deployed directly to the staging environment. You can, however, choose to make that a manual step, but for this demo, I wanted to have this automated. If I press this demo, there I have a coming soon landing page for this application. So what we've done is we have created a repository, and from there on, your pipelining is direct in place. You have a Docker file which you can extend to other needings for your applications, and from there on, your pipelining is in place to not only deliver it, but eventually we can extend that to testing as well. Because when we've built a container, you definitely want to test it on recent vulnerabilities.
So, just to make sure, this website is now live, right?
It's live.
All
Go
right.
have a look on it.
So, I can actually go, use my browser, and go to staging.wearegoingto.cloud.
Yes.
And there it is. It works on my machine. So, I'm hoping it's working on yours.
That's nice. We have this application, and I think from here on we do want to have something more than just this landing page. And what you normally would do in a company, if you have this environment and you want to iterate for a new version, you probably will check out a new branch based on this current version, and from there on start changing your the code of that application. The challenge you most of the time have is that you want to create a temporary environment to check out the changes you're having and you've done. So what we're going to do is I've set up a different piece of pipelining, of templating, which allows me to create environments based on feature, namespacing. So each branch that I commit to a feature branch will be delivered in a new environment. New environments will be created. So what we're going to do, I have a demo application, or at least a demo landing page, which is a little bit better than this one. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to deploy it in 4 different feature branches, and then you can vote on which of those feature branches we will eventually push first to the acceptance environment when we merge it, and after that we will take it for production. Shall we see if that's working, if that's going to work?
Let's see.
Cool.
Looking forward to it.
So we have we are going to the cloud repository over here. I have to admit I did some work before, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy it's .temp, and from here I have the red to html index.html. So if I now performing a git diff, you can see there is a lot of stuff changed. I'm gonna check out a feature branch. Let's see which color I had. I had the red one, so I'm gonna git check out feature with the idea that I'm gonna create a new environment which will be prefixed with feature red, and from there on I'm gonna see all the changes that I've made. Git commit, I'm gonna commit all the changes. Test red landings page. Yeah. Very nice.
Always be secure.
I'm gonna do the same for the yellow one. So what I'm gonna do here, I currently git status don't have any changes because I've already commit everything. I'm gonna use the same copy command. Yellow, should write it correctly. I'm gonna check it out in a different branch, and I'm gonna commit this as well. So check the yellow landings page. Always be secure. So what we've done, we are going to the cloud repository. We have created branches, so 2 branches, and you see that automatically the pipelines are running for those branches. So you see here I have 2 new pipelines, 2 feature pipelines. One is already finished, the red one, and the other one, the yellow, is currently still running. If I go back to ArgoCD, you see there is a new environment created, a new application created, which is based on that branching model. So if I'm clicking on that and want to see the application, apparently it's still waiting for the SSL certificate, but it's not. There it is. We have a red version of our landings page. I would say it's a great success from here, but we're not there because we've also deployed the yellow one, and that one should be ready in a few seconds as well. Aha, it's working as well. It's always nice if something is working, or almost everything is working.
It's almost working. On my end, I'm still getting a certificate warning. So I think you might have at some point approved that certificate while you were testing.
We'll see. So I'm going to push 2 more colors, and then let's have a vote about which one we will have to ship to production. I have a purple one as well. Committed my changes. View purple landings page. And then we have the last one, and the question is, what color did it was? We have a red one, a yellow one, and the purple one, so I think we also have a blue one.
So if people would like to visit this, where would they find these pages now, as they're being created?
You mean the domains to visit the website? So I've prefixed the branching name within the domain name. So if you have the main domain name, we are going to the cloud. If you prefix that domain name with a subdomain as feature-red, you should be able to visit that one. So feature minus red, I can only zoom in my, I cannot zoom in my,
in your browser?
Yeah, my domain name.
Your domain name, but it's feature-red.wearegoingtothe.cloud.
Yes, it is.
And then, of course, you also have feature-yellow.
Feature-yellow for sure. And currently the purple one is being deployed. So the feature purple, and I'm quickly going to create the, I've already been there, so I'm going to copy this one, and I have the blue one, and that will be the last one. Good. Check out. And then we're going to have the blue one. So we want to deliver the blue one. Git commit blue landings page. I like my really descriptive commit messages today.
Thankfully, the branch names speak for themselves.
Yep. I hope so. So these pipelines are being created, and you can already have a look. And what we want to have is to have your vote. Marijn is going to open the poll to see which color, the red one, the blue one, the yellow one, or the purple one, we are going to merge into the main branch. So the main branch, what we have created, this one, we want to change that one to the new version. And it's up to you which one it's going to be. It's going to be the blue one, the red one, the yellow one, or the purple one. If you open the poll.
I have opened the poll. There should be a poll. And you should be able to choose which color you like most. And that's what we're going to deploy eventually to production. For we are going to the cloud. And while we wait for that, so you've been showing how you've basically created feature branches based on copy-pasted HTML files.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess this is just your normal Git workflow, right?
Yeah, you can do this with anything, and this is now a basic static HTML file, but I can also change this container to a PHP container and run my PHP application, so my Laravel backend or a Symfony backend or maybe even a WordPress backend. I can use this same pipelining methods what I've created for all those applications.
Right. So if you were to have a larger application than this static landing page, you could just make a...
Definitely.
You could definitely clone this repository, make some changes, push a new feature branch.
Yeah, and I think one of the things what might be nice to see if we can get this to work is if I do a git checkout, going back to my default branch. I haven't updated my git yet, so I'm still using the master terminology. Sorry for that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a git checkout. I do gonna use the feature as well, but switch to PHP. And let's see if we can create a PHP container in which we're gonna do from PHP and what's currently the latest version, 8.1, I think so. What we're going to do here is a echo. Going to do a little bit of magic here, and I advise you to not do this in your production environment as well. But for the sake of this demo, let's use this. Expose port 80, and I'm going to use as command php -s. I want to serve PHP internal web browser, and as I said, I would not recommend you to do this in production. I want to listen to port 80 as I'm exposing it, and I want to serve the index.php, and I see I'm forgetting that here, index.php. Close this one, and from here this should be it, and I think this is gonna work.
Looks same to me.
If
We'll find out.
we're gonna find out for sure. Yes, that's what I expected. I'm gonna commit my changes into my feature branch and switch to a PHP backend. And if I'm pushing these changes, I first need to make sure I insert my password, and then within here, Gitlab, you should see a new pipeline for that feature branch. We're gonna wait on that, but first I wanna ask you, Marijn, how is the poll going?
I'm not actually sure. I'm seeing that the poll is running. I'm not quite sure if someone behind the screens can see whether we have results in already.
Or maybe
We do
not.
have results. So I think we're eager for the answer. So I'm going to end the poll, and I'm hoping that it will then let me do something. But of course, this is live, and I don't get to click anywhere.
I do, however, made a mistake here. I don't have to export but I need to expose this one for sure. Git commit, and I'm gonna change that one in fix.
There we go. Yep, I see them now. Thank you. I had a little issue with my browser, and I also see that there's some questions that came in, so that's also really cool.
Very nice.
While I end the poll, we see that 25% went for blue, and this is wonderful because I ended the poll and now it disappeared. But I think everybody overwhelmingly chose red.
Chose red. Oh, that's nice to hear.
So there was an overwhelming. There's a 50% red. There's 25% blue and 25% purple. Somehow nobody went for yellow.
Poor yellow.
So there we have it.
So that's cool. So I think we should merge the red branch into the main branch.
Into the main branch.
Cool. Let's do that. I don't have any merge request yet, so I'm gonna create a new merge request, and I want to merge. Am I in the correct branch? No, I want to change branches, and I want to merge the feature red into master. I want to compare it, and I should see the changes here that have been done. It's only the static content of the index.php, and we're gonna, description. I think a title is enough for this merge request. Create it, and then I'm gonna merge it directly as well.
All right.
Some sanity checks over there. You also got some questions.
I had some
didn't you?
questions, yeah. I'll start at the top. We had Tim ask us, hi guys, can you tell me what the difference is between app cloudification and app modernization?
That's a very good question. I'm not very familiar with the app modernization and app cloudification terms. So do you have any context about that?
There was none that was given, but I'm going to add a little bit here, a little bit then. I think that if you modernize your application is usually a play where you take your application and you really change it to work in a cloud native or in a modern ecosystem. Whereas I think that app cloudification would refer more to taking your application and just basically running it in the cloud.
So more like
more of a lift and shift.
Lift and shift, indeed.
Yeah. And I think the advantage of modernizing your application is that you take advantage of all these cloud native capabilities that you now have. And I think that will give you either performance or security or financial benefits in running your application.
Sounds good.
I had another question from Robert asking, what are the typical pitfalls in an app modernization project? And when should you not do it?
Ooh, that's a very nice question. I think it really depends on your application, and what we tend to see sometimes is like the legacy applications that people are not sure what's inside that. You can try to containerize it and to see if you can run it on that machine within that container as well. But you need to make sure that stuff is configurable. So if you're going to lift it to another platform, that you can configure the endpoints, etc. So if you're not sure about that, you really need to ask yourself if you want to do that. It is, however, a very nice challenge, but it's definitely a how do you say it? A vak apart.
Yeah. It's definitely a profession.
Yeah, definitely a profession. Thank you for that one.
Yeah. So there's the I think another thing. When should you not do it? I think you need to realize that you have to go into it for the right reasons. So if your reason to go to the cloud is because somebody once heard that it's the next thing, that's not maybe going to bring you the results. Maybe think about what you want from your app modernization, what the desired outcomes are, and work from there. And another one that you need to realize that is this, depending on your application size, of course. For a simple HTML landing page, it's a relatively small project. But
Definitely.
If you have anything that's of any size running in production, I think really think about how much time this is going to take you.
Yeah, if it's worth the effort and the cost.
And definitely maybe find help. There are a lot of companies like us that would love to help you do this in a structured manner.
Yeah, and you see that the cloud native landscape it's overwhelming. We already mentioned that. Find the right people, persons, companies to help you to get familiar with the context about it, especially with those legacy applications. We're back, I think, at the staging environment. We've merged the red branch into the staging environment, and you've probably already updated your application. But let's see, or your application, your environment. But let's see what happens when I refresh my page, and there it is. Wow, that's pretty easy, I would say. So the red one is on staging, and now we have to do one thing. And I've chosen for this one, before I go to production, to only do that with tagged commits. So when I go back to we are going to the cloud, I've created the same set of automation templates for tagged commits. So what happens is when you tag a commit, it will run the same pipelines, but then it will end up on the production environment. There is one catch. After the refactor, I did not test it, so we will see if it's still working. I'm going to the commits. This is my last commit. I merged the branch, and I'm going to tag this one. And let's start with version 2.0, because I like that. And from there on, we should see some new pipelines being created. And before that's running, let's see that we are going to the cloud. Doesn't have a backend yet, so it's all live. Nothing has been configured in advance. The pipeline will create the environment, etc. Are there more questions?
There are, actually. Paco asks how to deal with app-to-database latency in a cloud context. So how to compete with, for instance, ZOS app-to-database contiguous memory use when transposing your app and your database to the cloud.
Ooh, that's a very specific question, don't you think?
Super specific.
I'm very curious about the context as well, but what we see is when people are moving to the cloud, my pipeline is failing. I will dive into that one after this question. But when people lift and shift their stuff to the cloud environment tend to be different than your local environment. So where your server is standing probably close to the database, in the cloud environment, we cannot guarantee that it's so close to each other. And those delays, we would always recommend you to keep your environment as small as possible. And we're not a big fan of going, you can go multi-cloud and deploy your application over multiple regions, etc. But we try to keep all the components for a single application, for a single service within a region. So that should prevent delays, etc., or at least minimize the delays. So we would recommend you to keep them within that application or within that environment, within that region. And if it's not working for you, you should probably ask yourself a question if this is the right way. Have you used the correct services? And maybe you should get some help from an expert, because the landscape is very wide, very different, and we see each month, each year, new services pop up which are probably better. So you need to keep in line with that.
I completely agree. And I think to add to it, what you see often is if you have a single instance running both your application and your database, you're introducing a network, so you're introducing latency between the two. Mm-hmm. And also what people often tend to forget is that these cloud network environments tend to have transient errors, so maybe the network is just slow for a little bit, or there might be a little congestion somewhere on a switch. Mm-hmm. And you should really make sure that your database connection, your application is ready to really deal with that sort of transient error, and also detect whether this is something that you maybe need to retry once or twice, but never forever. Or that you should just give up because things are really, really down. And I think the better that you do this, the better that you're going to be able to leverage a cloud environment.
Cool. So while I'm trying to debugging this one, I probably see what I did wrong over there. Yesterday I had a really nice session with a client where we did exactly that as well. And that is debugging YAML. Make sure that everything is on the same line. Should do the trick. Fix YAML. I like it. Let's see if we can retry, and then I'm not sure if it will retrieve the same template as I've already provided, or it will refetch the updated version of this one.
Let's wait for the build to run. We're all very tense, hoping that this is it. No,
it's not. It's not. Ay, 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 ay.
This is how you know that we're really live.
Is the error message I expect? It's still the same error, so I'm not sure if it will retrieve the new updated version of this template. So that's a challenge. I'm gonna re-tag it to at least make sure that I'm starting a new pipeline and that I will retrieve the new version of the templates I've created.
All right.
I have to go to commits. I have my commit over here, and I'm gonna tag this one to 0. Let's see.
This is release 2. the one that has a fixed YAML.
Definitely. It should use the pipeline with the fixed YAML. And then let's see if it merge requests are closed. Always trouble finding the right icons on the left sidebar. We're gonna wait. So, do we have any other questions waiting?
I didn't see any more questions coming in, but if you do have a question, feel free to ask it. Absolutely.
I'm glad to see that we have some questions and some interaction with the crowd, and I'm curious if we answered the questions and the expectations you had from these sessions. So after this, you should be able, or we hope you have some guidelines to start with your cloud native journey. This is fingers crossed. Looking promising.
I think it did.
There we have it. Yay. And this is very nice. It's out of sync and it's not deployed. And how does that come? Because I've disabled automatic deployment to production. I want to have that manual trigger, and that really is one of the advantages of using ArgoCD in this use case. So if I'm going to roll this to production, I first can check the version that's there, and from there I'm going to synchronize it to the environment. I think I don't have a production namespace, so I'm just going to leave that checkbox there, and I'm going to synchronize it. And from there, it should obtain the TLS certificate, and it would should deploy the application. So this is where we ended last time. We didn't have any backend. If we refresh it, we should see the red website live.
There we go. So if you visit wearegoingtothe.cloud right now, then you should see this wonderful red.
See the same as me.
And all the ingredients you used basically were a GitLab pipeline, ArgoCD, a Helm chart.
I have a Helm chart. It's a very easy one. I do not want to go in detail about that one, but it exists of a deployment, which is a very small definition about the container I want to run on this environment. It has a service because I want to expose that container, and a piece of ingress in which I've set up some TLS for that, so it will obtain an automatically generated certificate for that environment. We do had one more environment running, and let's see if I can open it. Because we have created the PHP branch. Do you remember?
Yep.
Let's see what happens when I open it. Ta-da! That's nice. So we did a PHP version, well, more of a dump of all the configuration, and there you can see that we have successfully deployed this, this PHP container.
All right. So it's super cool that this works, and this also shows you the flexibility, right, of this whole process. So you could just take your own application. I mean, if it takes this little time to even change coding language, is HTML really language? But if it takes you this little time to really remodel your app in such a way and just see it running in a place where you can see it, where maybe your clients can see it and approve of it.
Yeah, definitely.
That seems like a really powerful way of developing, to me at least. I have one more follow-up question from Paco, and his question is, so if you were to move this legacy application to the cloud, with millions of records being dealt with from both database and flat files in the cloud, what would be the best practices? And his question specifically is, would you remodel the process so it does not deal with more than 1 million records?
Sorry, can you just repeat the question?
So the question is really, if you're moving your application to the cloud, and you're dealing with millions of records being dealt with, from both the database and flat files, then what are your best practices? Should you remodel your process so it doesn't have to deal with these millions of records?
Ooh.
It's an oddly specific question.
Yeah, again. I like it. And
If you
a
have
webinar
follow-up
about-
questions about this, by the way, Paco, feel free to contact us.
Yeah, definitely.
Because I think we need a little bit more context for this sort of a situation. But I think there's some general stuff you can say about this.
Yeah, can you, is it allowed to have downtime for your application? Can we just pick it up, shut it down, and transfer it to the cloud? Or is that not possible? That are basically the first question to ask. And if it's not, then we need to probably design something around it that maybe you can, how do you tend to say it? Store different, God, hoe heet het nou? You can distribute specific resources to specific endpoints. So you start using the cloud and you slowly gonna fill that one up with your new resources. So you have a very smooth transition. If that's not possible, we should probably think of some other methods.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think another one, I mean, you're talking about a batch process. So the biggest question is, what is your application doing here? Is this maybe an ETL process that you're running? There are strategies to deal with this. One could be using a message queue to split up this work into different applications. So this is super application specific. But if you want to get started on looking at how you might use this strategy, other than contacting us, obviously, or a party like us, is that you could go and have a look at 12factor.net, and they will have some guidelines on how to deal with these kinds of operations, and it might give you some inspiration to rework your application to live in a cloud context, really.
Cool. So I'm not sure if you were able to see my screen while I was doing some magic stuff for most of the people that, watching. I've created a new repository in the same way I've set it up the first one, and I've give that the name of myself, so Martijn van Calker, and I've configured that with the domain name of martijnvankalker.nl. It's pointing to the same server, and it will make sure that over a few minutes, a future environment, or at least a staging environment, will be populated with a coming soon welcome message. So if you want to have a look at that, check it out. And I think for now we're, it should be deployed, I see, but that's for someone else and later on. Yeah. Cool. I think we're currently at the end of our...
We're at the end. We're slightly over time, I see. So thanks everyone for watching. We hope to talk to you or see you again soon. Feel free to hit us up on LinkedIn or shoot us an email if you would like to.
Definitely. Thanks all for joining, and we'd love to hear from you.